Two men are arrested. They are placed in separate rooms. Neither can see the other, hear the other, or know what the other has decided. Each is offered the same deal. Betray the other and you walk free. Stay silent together and you both do well enough. But if both stay silent and one talks, the silent one loses everything. And if both talk, both lose, just a little less badly than the one who trusted. This is called the prisoner's dilemma. It sounds like a courtroom story. It is not. It is a description of every situation where two parties would both do better by trusting each other and both do worse if they try. It has been used to explain arms races, marriages, office politics, fisheries collapsing, nations refusing to cut carbon. It has a body count no one has ever agreed on how to measure. And the strangest part of the idea is not that people fall into it. It is that thinking clearly makes it worse. This is the story of how a Cold War math problem became the coldest description of human relationships ever written down. 1950. A research institute in California, funded by the Air Force, paid mathematicians to think about the end of the world. Their job was to imagine, in precise terms, how two nuclear powers might destroy each other. Two mathematicians there, Merrill Flood and Melvin Drescher, built a small experiment to test something simpler first. Not bombs, just two people, a set of choices, and a small reward that changed depending on what the other one picked. A mathematician named Albert Tucker later gave the experiment its name using a story about two prisoners for a talk to psychologists. He needed a story simple enough that anyone could feel the trap immediately. He picked one that has outlived every equation underneath it. Here is the trap, laid out fully. Two people, two choices each, 4 possible outcomes. If you both cooperate, you both get a modest, decent outcome. Call it 3 points each. If you both betray, you both get almost nothing. Call it 1 point each. If one betrays while the other cooperates, the betrayer gets everything, 5 points, and the cooperator gets nothing at all. Now think about it from just one side. Whatever the other person does, betraying gives you a better result than cooperating. If they cooperate, you do better by betraying. If they betray, you also do better by betraying. Betrayal is what mathematicians call a dominant strategy. It wins no matter what the other player does. So both sides reason their way there, both betray, both end up with almost nothing, even though a better outcome for both of them was sitting right there the entire time, one decision away. This is the part that unsettled the mathematicians who found it. Rational thinking, applied correctly, produces the worse outcome. Not because anyone is stupid or greedy or cruel, because the logic itself points there and refuses to point anywhere else. The economist Thomas Schelling once called this kind of trap the difference between what is good for me and what is good for us. Every player optimizing for themselves can still produce a result that every player, without exception, would have voted against. This is why the idea escaped the math department within a decade. It explained too much of daily life to stay there. Take the Cold War itself, which is where this all started. Two nations, each deciding whether to build more weapons. Both would prefer to disarm together and spend that money on almost anything else. But if one disarms while the other secretly builds, the one who disarmed is finished. So both built for 40 years, warheads stacking into the tens of thousands on each side. Neither side wanted this particular world. Both built it anyway, one rational decision at a time. The name for this exact trap, scaled up to nations, is the security dilemma. It is the prisoner's dilemma wearing a uniform. But nations are not the interesting case. The interesting case is what this does to two people who claim to love each other. Consider a couple deciding whether to be honest about a mistake or to hide it and hope. If both confess everything, the relationship absorbs the damage and usually survives it. If one confesses and the other does not, the honest one is punished for it and learns the lesson permanently. So the safest move, individually, is silence, which is exactly how two people who love each other stop telling each other anything. Marriage counselors describe this without ever naming it. Two people, both defending, neither attacking, and the marriage dying anyway. Now take it into an office. Two colleagues up for the same promotion, deciding whether to share credit or take it all. Sharing credit, done by both, makes the whole department look strong and both of them look reliable. But the one who takes sole credit while the other shares it fairly walks away with the entire promotion. Every office that runs on internal competition instead of shared goals is running this exact machine, on repeat, every quarter. Consider fishing fleets sharing one ocean. Every captain knows that pulling less means more fish next year for everyone. But any captain who holds back while the others do not simply loses their share to boats that kept fishing. So, the sea empties, slowly, then all at once, exactly as the mathematics predicted it would. This has a name too, the tragedy of the commons. It is the same trap, wearing a different coat, in a different textbook. Every version of this trap shares the same bone structure, individually smart, collectively ruinous, no villain required. And this is where Dostoevsky becomes useful, a century before any of this had a name. In Notes from Underground, his narrator insists that people will choose their own ruin on purpose, just to prove they are free to. He was not writing about mathematics, but he had already found the trap's true engine: spite outlasting self-interest, every time. The prisoner's dilemma assumes both players want to maximize their own points. Dostoevsky suspected some people would rather maximize the other's loss. That is a darker game than the one the mathematicians modeled, and it may be the more honest one. Back to the mathematics for a moment, because there is a piece we have left out, and it changes everything. Everything so far has assumed the game is played once. Two strangers, one decision, then they never see each other again. But almost nothing in real life is played once. You see your neighbor again tomorrow. You see your rival again next quarter. This is called the repeated game, and it is where the trap either tightens or, for the first time, loosens. In the 1980s, a political scientist named Robert Axelrod ran a tournament, not of people, of computer programs. Each program played the prisoner's dilemma against every other program over and over, hundreds of rounds at a time. Some programs were built to betray constantly. Others were elaborate, tracking histories, punishing grudges, calculating far ahead. The winner was almost embarrassingly simple. 4 lines of logic. It was called tit for tat. Its entire strategy: cooperate first, then simply do whatever the other player did to you last time. No memory of grudges, no plan for revenge beyond the very next round, just an echo 1 step behind you. It beat every aggressive strategy entered against it, not by winning single rounds, but by never triggering a long war. This was the first real proof that trust could survive inside the trap if the game never actually ends. The shadow of the future, Axelrod called it. When you expect to meet someone again, betrayal costs more than it earns. This is why small towns feel more honest than big cities. Not because the people are different, because the game repeats. It is why reputation matters more than any single deal. A reputation is just a memory of the game, carried by everyone else. And it is why the internet, full of strangers who never meet twice, turns so many decent people cruel without consequence. No shadow of the future, no repeated game, just the single round, forever, with a new stranger every time. Tit for tat had one weakness the tournament exposed quickly. In a world with any noise, any mistake, it could spiral. One accidental betrayal, one misread signal, and 2 cooperating players could lock into permanent retaliation forever over nothing. This is a divorce that started from one misunderstood sentence. This is a war that started from one intercepted signal. The fix, found later, was a strategy called generous tit for tat. It forgives occasionally, on purpose, even when it shouldn't. It loses a few points doing this, and over the long run it wins more than any strategy that never lets anything go. Forgiveness, in other words, is not a moral virtue floating above the mathematics. It is inside the mathematics, load-bearing. This should unsettle anyone who thinks kindness is separate from strategy. Here, it is the strategy. So the trap is not permanent. Under the right conditions, cooperation can win, and win consistently, without anyone being naive. But here is the darkest idea in the whole field, and the reason this trap keeps its name. Knowing all of this changes nothing. Alone, you can understand every equation on this table and still walk into a one-shot game with someone you will never see again. A landlord you will never rent from twice. A negotiation with someone retiring next month. A stranger you will never meet again. In every one of those rooms, the mathematics does not soften. It says betray, clearly, calmly, and correctly. And most human situations, if you look closely enough, are secretly one-shot games wearing the costume of an ongoing relationship. The business partner who is quietly planning to leave. The friend keeping score no one else knows about. The country planning its final betrayal for later. You cannot always tell which game you are in until the last round happens, and by then the round is already over. This is the trap's real cruelty. It is not that betrayal is common, it is that you cannot know in advance which world you are standing inside. Robert Axelrod's own conclusion was almost gentle for a man who spent years running war games on computers. He wrote that the way out was never smarter calculation. It was building situations where people expect to meet again. Every institution that has ever worked, courts, guilds, marriages that last, treaties that hold, does exactly this one thing. They manufacture a future. They force the single round to become a repeated one, and the trap loosens its grip a little. But manufacturing a future is expensive. It requires law, memory, enforcement, something that outlasts any single player's patience. Remove any one of those, law, memory, enforcement, and the game quietly reverts to its original colder shape. This happened to entire nations when empires collapsed. Suddenly there was no shared future to enforce, only strangers and one round left. It happens to a company in its final year when everyone senses the end and starts taking what they can before it closes. It happens to a marriage once both people quietly agree, without saying so, that there is no future left to protect. The last round always looks the same, no matter the scale. Rules stop mattering. Everyone reaches for what they can hold, which raises an uncomfortable question this channel is not going to answer for you tonight. How do you know if you are already in the last round? Dostoevsky wrote a man who convinced himself that everything was permitted and then discovered permission was the easy part. Living with it was the trap. The trap is not that people betray each other. It is that betrayal is often the correct answer, calculated honestly by people who are not cruel. That is the part nobody wants printed on a motivational poster. Good strategy and good character are not the same axis, and never were. So the honest question is not how to win the game, it is whether you can see clearly which game you are already inside. Most of the traps in this idea are quiet. No siren sounds. No door slams shut. The trap looks, from inside it, like an ordinary Tuesday. You keep choosing the safe, defensive, slightly cynical move. Everyone around you does the same. Nobody decided this. It simply became the floor. And once a floor like that sets, it holds the whole structure up. Pull one person out of the pattern and the others simply close the gap. There is a way out described in the mathematics, and it is almost insultingly simple. Someone has to move first. Without proof it will be returned. That is not optimism. It is a bet, placed by someone who has read the odds and decided to lose gracefully rather than win badly. Every prisoner in every dilemma we have described tonight was, in the end, just someone deciding what kind of loss they could live with. The channel will not tell you which loss to choose. That decision does not belong to a screen. It belongs to whatever room you are sitting in right now. Somewhere tonight, two people are deciding, without saying it out loud, whether to trust each other one more time than the numbers advise. If this kind of question sits with you the way it sits with us, there is more of it waiting here. Until then, choose carefully.